How often have we seen this situation? Big business and big government make a big mistake, and it's the little guy who gets hurt. In this case, the little guys are New Mexico widows and grieving families. But thanks to News 13 investigative reporter Larry Barker, these little guys will be taken care of. However, the mind-boggling mess is far from finished.
I think it's one of the strangest situations I've ever run into.
This was a big deal. This was a very big deal.
It's mind-boggling to me what's happened here. I don't know why it happened the way it happened.
State employee Martin Heffler could not have foreseen the unbelievable, cold-hearted tragedy that unfolded last November. Martin was a firefighter with the Energy and Minerals Department. He died last year at the age of 50, leaving behind his wife Lena and 8 children.
It's just hard without him. We all just miss him.
Martin had a life insurance policy through his state job, but shortly after his untimely death, the insurance company refused to pay Martin's $33,000 death benefit. Bob Allard was a state park technician at Heron Lake. Bob paid his life insurance premiums through state payroll deductions. However, after he passed away in 2010, the insurance company refused to pay Bob's widow the $22,000 death benefit. In November, we spoke with State Personnel Officer Gene Mosier.
When a family's been expecting that funding, that money, pay for death benefits, whatever, and find out that they're not getting anything. And I think that's obscene. Their response was immoral. It was wrong.
The Standard Insurance Company of Portland, Oregon provides life insurance policies for state employees.
What we discovered was that the employees who had died and their families were thinking they had insurance coverage were finding out that they weren't covered.
The impact was most acutely felt by the survivors. Gene Mosier recalls a conversation with one widow last fall.
An 80-year-old woman who had been denied claims that her husband had died. She was distraught. I mean, she never thought this was going to get fixed. And this is somebody who is living in a trailer by herself in the middle of, in a very rural area. I mean, it made a huge difference in her life.
The state ended up paying the Heffler and Allard insurance claims. Then they sent Standard a bill for $55,000. That was 9 months ago. Now, News 13 has learned of at least 10 other state employee families that have been victimized. According to internal state documents, Standard Insurance has denied more than $200,000 in death benefits to a dozen state employee families. And even though some of those cases go back 4 years, all of them have been kept under wraps. Ed Burkle is the General Services Cabinet Secretary.
I was surprised to learn that there were this many claims that should have been paid but had been denied by the Standard.
So is that it? 12.
There are 12 that have been disclosed to date. There are likely to be a few more. We just don't know. Until Standard conducts a 100% review of all of its previously denied claims, we don't know.
Last year, Standard refused to talk about denied claims on the phone or in person. When we paid a visit to the firm's Portland headquarters, security guards were dispatched to protect the financial giant from unwanted scrutiny.
Excuse me, are you threatening me, sir? Here's a security guard with Standard Insurance Company taking pictures on a public street.
The state and Standard launched independent investigations. Now, both parties have agreed to resolve the disputed life insurance policies. According to this written agreement, all previously denied death claims will be paid.
When we talked last November, we didn't even have Standard at the negotiating table. I think it was your story that brought sufficient amount of publicity to the issue that actually created a situation where Standard came to the bargaining table. We were able to strike a deal where everyone was going to be covered if they had been paying premiums.
Now, Standard is not solely to blame for what's happened here. New Mexico also made mistakes. As part of the settlement, New Mexico taxpayers will pick up the tab for future death claims made by state employees or their dependents up to a total of $300,000 a year. Any claims over that amount will be picked up by Standard.
This is not an insurance company. This is state of New Mexico. Why would you pay insurance claims?
As part of the settlement with the standard, neither party admitted any guilt whatsoever. However, the state has admitted that we had poor training. We did have inconsistent enrollment processes dating back to 2007. So we admitted that and said we'll take on a minimal increase in the state's risk, provided the standard takes on the lion's share of the increased responsibility.
Don Letherer is a former state insurance superintendent.
How unusual of a situation is that for the state of New Mexico to be paying insurance claims?
I don't know how the heck that can happen. To me, it doesn't make any sense at all. They're not an insurance company. They're not licensed as an adjuster, and I don't know how in the world they can do that.
When was the last time you saw a situation like that?
Never.
Now, the agreement with Standard does not resolve all of the outstanding issues. For example, out of the thousands of state employees who have been paying life insurance premiums, none have been provided with an important document called a certificate of insurance, even though it's required by state law.
When somebody dies, people don't always know what they're insured for or not insured for. How in the world would people know where to go to cash in on the life insurance if they have no certificates?
Today, state employees who have been paying premiums for life insurance, do they have a certificate of insurance?
They do not have a certificate of insurance.
Is that a problem?
That's a super problem because, for one thing, the state statutes on insurance say that a group program must include group certificates to the individual insureds, and it wasn't done in this case.
As the insurance dispute continues, Secretary Burkle has a message for state employees.
We have got your back. We are going to make sure that if you've been paying premiums and you suffer a death or your dependent suffers a death, that you will be covered. No state employee has to worry whether they are covered or not covered.
Life insurance especially has to be certain. If it's not certain, you seek who's responsible for it not being certain. Well, I think there's a lot of fault to go around, and I think it's both sides.
My job is to make sure that our employees are properly being covered in compliance with the Personnel Act, and that we're ensuring their safety and their welfare. We have an obligation. We made a promise that we were doing certain things. We have to fulfill that promise.
Larry Barker, KRQE News 13.
Well, here's another promise. As a result of the standard insurance fiasco, the state has now hired a private human resources firm to handle state employee benefits. The company will be paid $1.4 million a year.